As a chief guest today, we have with us Mr. Deepak Bagla, Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency. I would like to invite Mr. Bagla to come on screen and address those who have joined us today.
Thank you, Julia. Hi, Harsh. I was listening to you and I must compliment you and Nat Health and TIE. And there's a reason why I want to do that. The reason is it is one of the most topical things which you're doing. And I think this partnership is very, very critical. And I'll speak a little about that. But before that, I think we must thank Mr. Bhattacharya, Naveen, obviously we've spoken, Dr. Agarwal, Ishika, Mr. Reddy, Dr. Manchanda, Ms. Nevetya, Dr. Vidur Mahajan. Actually, Vidur, I must compliment you. Earlier this week, we had a delegation from the US, some medical devices people and some startups, and they were speaking very highly of what you're doing. So compliments to you and thank you for keeping India on the map there. And Naveen and Anurag and all of you, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity and inviting us. I thought what I'll do with this, I'll share with you what we at Invest India are going through and experiencing vis-a-vis the sector which we are discussing today. And I'll just share some numbers with you. But before that, I must tell you, in many ways, I compliment all of you who are a part of this sector. But in many other ways, I want to wish you the best of luck on it because it's not going to be the easiest. This is probably going to be one of the most disrupted sectors during the course of the next 5 years to a decade. And when you mean of disruption, so if you're not willing to do that change and if you're not willing to do the somersault and pivot your business models, you lose out on a large part of the wave which is taking this forward. And when I talk about a wave, let me tell you, when we were doing the market sizing it within my team, so we have a special dedicated team which is working on pharmaceuticals, another one on medical devices, and another one on health per se. Many of you have been working with that team, and obviously a completely separate team which works on the startup side of it and the disruptional side of it. But let's go back, and these are statistics you are all aware of. But when we were doing the market sizing just 24 months ago, there was a number of about 200 to 220 billion of that entire sector, and everybody said that's a big number. Well, let's see what has happened. Within 12 to 14 months, that 220 billion has moved to 280 billion. And everybody kept clicking their tongues and saying that's a big number. And now, within the next 20 months, what you're looking at, that number moving to 372 billion. And I'm very sure in the next 3 months, it's going to be recalibrated completely again. So what you are sitting in the midst of, and that is for all the startups, there are no slides to be shared. Piyush, you were asking me that question. If it's for me, there are none. I'll just share some thoughts. What is very interesting here is you are riding this wave. In many ways, this wave is going to take you for another 4 to 7 years. And it is what you make of this wave, each one of you who are stakeholders in it, which will define the next phase of your businesses, of your careers, and all your lives. Let me just share with some numbers for you. So, you know, the team currently, my team, is working on 818 business requests related to pharmaceuticals, top 5 countries. You know, I mean, we all know about it. There's US, UK, China, UAE. But what's interesting, when I look at pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and health, in the past 24 months, I have business requests from over 86 countries. 86 countries looking either for partnerships or wanting to invest in India or wanting to start their business in India. So going back to numbers, pharmaceuticals, 818 business requests, which the team is dealing with. Medical devices, 653. And health per se, 889. The other interesting element, if you look at it, if I drew the pie chart about 4 years ago, you would have always had the same old names. On the state side, you'll have a Delhi, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and you would have had Maharashtra. That pie is increasing dramatically. Today, I'm seeing an interest across 29 states and union territories already. And what is happening there is that we are working very closely and all these clusters which are there across the country. and creating a very quick plug and play business model, because a large number of MSMEs are looking at this sector and they are coming from across the globe. I mentioned to you 86 countries, but if I have to look at it, I'm seeing interest coming in from Japan very significantly, from Europe, from Taiwan, interestingly, in medical devices, from Korea again, and obviously the good old, you have the UK, the UAE. The UAE been a lot of financial investors, and I'm seeing that coming up from other countries too. So what I'm saying is, one, the number of countries from where I'm seeing the interest has broad-based immensely. And secondly, where that interest is targeted at in my states has broad-based immensely again. Now, let me share some other thoughts with you. One of my roles is, so we have a startup fund of funds, you all know about it, the 10,000 crore fund, where we are funding other funds, which are only going to be funding startups. And in the past 9 months, I'm seeing each of these funds, when they are coming in, every one of them is looking at medicine and health as a center pillar of their strategy. And they're getting huge amounts of money. And by the way, what's interesting is I'm seeing that a large number of these funds have women as a part, either on their IC or their promoters or a GP. So a large level of gender participation is coming across in that part also. I liked Amit's presentation. I think it gave us a very broad spectrum of what is happening. And what I liked in that specifically was his showing of how innovation, startup, and this industry have to work together to see how the road ahead is going to be built. And that takes me back to my point that how fast can you adopt the change and how fast can you adapt to that change is going to define the success of all of you, because you are sitting on the brink of the ability of being global leaders in the segment you are. The reason is you've got the local numbers which get you the scale and the economies of scale. And you have the innovation, the frugality of your innovation, the applicability of your innovation, and your ability to be nimble and pivot your business models to make yourself global leaders. We've seen that on how you did your PPEs and your ventilators. The other two elements which are coming, and I'm seeing a large level of investment coming in that. And this one, the next one is both from the public side, which is the government, and also on the private side, is on the digitization. And the reason why I speak about digitization, I don't need to mention it. You're all there. You are the masters of this craft. You know how it is going to impact your businesses very critically. But yes, that is now going to be a very significant driving force where your industry is concerned. The other element where I'm seeing a very significant interest of global interest, and that is wellness and Ayush. You know, you'll be surprised that during the past 12 months, we have seen multifold, I mean, some products going, the exports increasing by over 800%. Some of these Ayush, Ayurvedic products, and a lot of them going to Europe and the US and such countries. And one of the interesting things we saw, that this is an increasing trend both in the US, and I know some of you may not always see the fit with it, but I think if there is a bridge which can be created, there's always something to look forward to. The old forms of medication, not just from India, but from other countries, have taken off extensively, even on the Western coast in the US. And we are trying to put our arms around it and seeing how wellness, which is now going to be a big source of money and investment coming in, how India can play a role in it. And I'm looking at you guys doing the same. And what is also happening, let me tell you, some of the public sector units in India, which have additional land at their disposal in their plants and are very well located, are actually looking very actively to partner globally to create tourism medical facilities. So medical tourism is now picking up in a big way. But the very interesting thing is you have entities, because this is a very quick model to take off. The land is there, all the clearances are there. You'll obviously have a community there with skilled manpower. And I'm going to come to the skilled manpower because that is going to be something which is very, very important. So those kind of things are already in play. This is in addition to how we can upgrade some of the clusters. And I would like all of you to please be with us or suggest to us what else we can do, pick up those locations and see how we can do it. And especially the startups and everybody there. And you know, you've got Thai and we've been working very closely with them. The state level initiatives, are taking huge prominence in this one also. We've got a number of states which have now reached out to us proactively and which are now marking parcels of land available where they can put up either skill centers, because that is now another very big area. And I'm also seeing that in a number of the venture capital funds which are coming to us for funding on that mother fund of funds. They are looking at skilling in a very big way in this entire effort. So that is the other one. I know I've already moved beyond my 10 minutes, which has been allotted to me. But let me just tell you quickly, when I spoke to you about those number of business requests, one of the biggest sectors there is e-pharmacy. And then I'm seeing e-diagnostics, teleconsultations as one of the fastest growing there. Artificial intelligence in healthcare is taking off in a big way, including virtual reality. Robotics and 3D printing, we all know about. We've seen how robotics helped us, even in places like Jharkhand and small hospitals there. And data analytics and aided diagnostics. I mean, I'm not saying there are other sectors, but these are some of the ones which are really being pushed very aggressively, which have been coming to us. So what am I coming to eventually? You are the disruptors. You are the executioners. I don't think you sit in a sweet spot. And why I say you sit in a sweet spot, because you're in a spot today where finances will never be a constraint, at least for the next few years. But the challenge for you is to ramp up really fast. You're not the only ones on the planet who are being able to do it. It's just that today you are in a position where you can. My suggestion, go back to your business models. Ramp up on multiple X's, not just a 2X or a 3X. There is a large, and we are also getting, I'm seeing some very interesting proposals on people giving complete healthcare per person at one of the lowest costs in the world. And there's a project which is happening in one of the state governments close to Delhi, where they're picking up an X number of people in an X number of villages on that project to be run, to speak about. That again is going to be a huge disruptional model, because those amounts are very insignificant. And the moment you can see that healthcare going down to the real tranches where the country requires them, where all that is happening, it's very, very interesting. So with that, I thank you once again for doing this. I think this partnership is very, very critical. I must tell you that Startup India is also, Invest India is responsible for the execution of Startup India. But the other interesting element of this is that the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Initiative, which is the accelerated growth of New India innovation, where we are picking up R&D and innovation, which is happening across the private and the government sector and in academic institutions, and fast tracking it to commercialization. Where in the past, during the pandemic itself, setting up those emergency hospitals, getting ventilators done, and actually working with all of you to see what else can be done, is happening at a very fast rate. So I think this partnership makes immense sense. You're in the center of it. We are there to support you and facilitate you in any which way. Now it's just for you and your initiative to take it on. Thank you again, and let me thank Harsh. As always, you're always up to interesting things. Thank you for inviting me. This is really exciting, this initiative. And I wish you the best. And please remember, we are there to help you every which way on every step you take. Thank you again.